Hey everyone, Andres Gamboa here with another episode of the Ponytails podcast. Man, do we have a fun one today? Joe Ignace is in the house, former DSL of the Southwestern Advantage Company. But more on him in just a second. Couple of quick announcements and a little bit about who we are if you have not heard of this. So if you're listening, maybe this is your first episode and you're a book person. Welcome. This is a lot of fun. We talk to book people about their experience and catch up to what they're up to now and kind of just have a blast getting to know their stories or their entire background and how this experience shaped them for the good or the bad or whatever. It's been a blast. We've had 176 episodes now. This is 176. Can you believe it? We're approaching 200. So close. Go check out some of your other favorites. But if you did not sell books and you're like, what are you talking about, bald man on the screen and or in my ear? Well, Southwestern Advantage is a company that recruits college kids every summer, and they go sell books door to door for 80 hours a week on straight commission, no place to live guaranteed, and it's just a bananas experience. They call it like the Marines, like the sales for the Marines or something like that. It's like a crazy internship, one of the best internships in the country. It's bananas, but they've been doing this since 1865, literally since the Civil War ended. And so naturally, there's hundreds of thousands of people that have done this. And so we find them in the wild, have them come here on the show, and they tell us about their experience. Hopefully you guys enjoy. There's going to be a variety of stories today. Joe is a person who is crushing it right now at life. A lot of really good value to be added. So maybe take a journal out, take some notes. If you're listening to this at the gym, hope you enjoy. If you are on your drive to work, pay attention to the road. But thanks for listening. And so if you guys want to get connected, if you guys want to hear more a little bit about our show, the Ponytails Podcast itself, you can go to our website, theponytailspodcast.com. That's tales as in stories, not like horsetail, but like tales, Tales, theponytailspodcast.com. You can check out our merch. Sign up for our newsletter called The Colts, COLT. Everything here is horse themed, and our newsletter will let you know a little bit more about what's coming up on the show, things to look forward to, and all that jazz. Now, a little bit about Joe before we get him on the screen here. He sold for 6 total summers, and then he was a DSL for 1 summer after that. So his entire involvement in the company was from 2016 to this just last summer, 2022. So he just pivoted and started a new direction. We'll hear about why and how that was the case. But he's part of the Total Domination Organization, the TD. Went to the University of Tennessee, or where the volunteers they volunteer. I just put it in quotations because I just think it's a funny name. Sorry, Joe. Volunteers. He's originally from Johnson City, Tennessee, but he was born in Scotland, and I'm curious to hear about that. So means my man's an immigrant, as I am. So I always like connecting with him. He was born in Glasgow. It's kind of cool. If you guys want to get a hold of him, he's on YouTube. You can go find his YouTube channel. So you can just type in youtube.com/@theknowledgegap.com, and it'll pull up his channel. Or you could probably just type in the Knowledge Gap on the search bar on YouTube and find him there. And if you're not much of a YouTuber person yet, or if you're not sure how to like find people on YouTube, you can also find his links on his website, joeignace.com. That's JOEIGNACE.com. You find all the links to Spotify and all this other stuff that he's doing. He's doing some really cool projects. He's got his hand in many jars right now, and he is succeeding at all of them. So let's find out how in a second. Ponytails Podcast. Boom. Oh, I forgot to say that your favorite scroll is "I will persist until I succeed." Did I say that? I don't think I said it.
No, you didn't say it, but you said it.
Well,
now
we know.
Now we know it counts. So
it counts now, man.
By the way, dude, I'm not technically an immigrant. By the way.
Oh, really? How does that?
Yeah.
How does that work then?
So my parents are from Indiana, like Fort Wayne, Indiana. They're high school sweethearts. So they're both American. And my dad was working over at, I think he worked for the government in Scotland or something. And so he just happened to be there for a stint of several years or whatever. And me and my little sister were born there. So,
but were you born like on American soil in Scotland?
No, in Scotland. So this is what my mom tells me. My wife disagrees. But I'm pretty sure I was a dual citizen until I was about 18. But I don't know actually, but that's what my mom told me. Others seem to disagree for some reason, but yeah, so maybe at some point and maybe in the future I could call up Scotland and just be like, hey, could I get a passport for the British Isles or something? Because they're not European Union anymore, so I don't know how far that's going to get me anymore compared to the United States one. But
1-800 Scotland. Excuse me. Have you not heard of me? Are you the mom of the house?
That's right.
Dude. But then, so let me ask this. Then this is funny to start with this. But what if you wanted to run for president?
Dude, that's something I've always joked about on the book field. That was always my joke, if they were asking me where I was from or whatever, I'd tell them the story of where I was born in Scotland, and it's like, yeah, I can't run for president, or whatever, but I just kind of chuckle about it. But I don't actually know how that rule works, and I don't know there's some Obama story where he wasn't born on certain soil or something, but he was on a military base. I have no idea, but that is an interesting idea. But born to two American citizens, I think it's okay. I mean, it'd be cool if that actually came up as a serious question. I mean, that would be, if that was like, this guy should be president. Wait, we need to really think about this controversial birthplace.
Well, yeah, because it would set precedent, right? Like, almost pun intended, but it would set precedent about being a president from a different place, right? Because, for example, me, right? I was born in Colombia. I lived there for 7 years, but I'm a U.S. citizen. I mean, my passport's right here. It's blue, right? So,
where are your parents
I think the
from?
rule, they're from Colombia.
Well, there you go. I mean, so that's a huge difference, right? I mean, so if we're getting into the semantics of it, it's like, well, both my parents are American, and technically, when I was born, because they're both American citizens, and they were only staying in Scotland for so long, still American a citizen. If my parents were Scottish, and then I, assimilated, emigrated, whatever the correct phrase is, what's the actual phrase for citizenship?
Like natural born? Is that what you're talking about?
No. There's a certain phrase that is the blank process to citizenship.
No,
I'm looking it up.
Good, because I'm looking up what it qualifies to be a president. This is what I'm looking. No person except a natural born citizen or a citizen of the United States. But or a citizen of the United States.
Naturalization. That's what it is.
Naturalization. Oh, okay.
Naturalization.
Yeah, so I'm a naturalized citizen though. That's what I'm like. I have a form and it says form for naturalization, and then it says US and like my number.
Right. Yeah. But I don't have that.
But you have to have how? That's so interesting. I mean, we don't have to get into why. That's a whole different topic. But it's interesting because you were born in another country, so your birth certificate has to be from Scotland.
Yeah, no, the birth certificate is from Scotland. I've seen it before, but I do not have a naturalized form or whatever I don't even know what you're talking about. But I believe you.
That is so bananas.
Yeah. Huh. So there you go. I'm glad we're getting this all out of the way for my eventual presidential run.
When you run for president, because if you run, I'll be your vice.
2038 or something.
All right. Yeah. I'll be your vice president. See if you die or not.
Yeah.
And if you die, then I'll be like, all right, but hey, same thing, right?
You could wait till I'm really, really old and then sort of like, try to, go from behind the scenes.
Yeah, or just put a hit on you. Maybe.
Well,
I'm Colombian at heart.
That's right.
Oh man. Here's the actual rule.
Colombia must have been crazy. How old were you when you came over here?
I was 7.
7, wow. Now, when you came over here, I know, sorry, you're supposed to be asking the questions, but I'm just genuinely curious.
No.
What was it like in Colombia? Like walk me through what it was like.
This is funny because literally the episode we recorded before. So people hearing this are gonna be like, we just heard this in the other episode.
Really?
But people who haven't heard the last episode, sure. It was bananas, man. The 90s in Colombia was everything. Have you seen Narcos?
Honestly, no. I know what it is, but I've never seen it.
So that is for people who've watched Narcos, it was just as depicted. I mean, it was I remember bombs going off, daily news stories about people blowing up other buildings, schools and shit. I said this in the last episode, but I was like, remember when this is how fucked up it was when the Boston Marathon happened. I remember the thought in my head was, oh, only 3 people died. That was like what I thought. Because to me, when I hear bombs going off at a public place that's highly trafficked, like the finish line of the Boston Marathon, in my head, I'm thinking, 100 people died,
Oh
because
yeah.
that's the kind of thing that I was used to. But yeah, it was bananas. We had to move because my family was going to get murdered, which is a whole long story that I wrote in detail. But
Book plug. What's the book?
yeah, it's called The Cost of Citizenship.
Interesting.
Ta-da! Find it on Amazon.
Ding 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 ding.
And
And maybe
or
I
just
can
type
put
my
the
name.
Amazon link on my videos. Support
Sure.
the Knowledge Gap channel
Yeah.
by
We
buying
talk
Andre's book.
by buying
It
the
also
book. That's
it
right.
kicks back to both of us. It's great.
Yeah, why not? Let's collab on that, dude. I'm down. I talk about the book, but I don't normally plug it. So that's strange. But the point is, yeah, it's crazy. And then
You know,
we ended up in Nebraska.
Nebraska, farthest place from any danger ever. Nebraska, baby.
Yeah. And ocean. It's the
Yes,
farthest place
ocean.
from any danger and any major body of water. It's the only
Yes.
triple landlocked
No one can
territory
follow
in
you
the
there.
world. In the
Yeah.
world.
Do you know do you know what Amazon affiliates like is? Have you heard of that?
Like when you are partnering with them to and they
Yeah.
plug you and they support
Yeah.
you.
You know
I
that
do
like
know. I haven't looked into it. Know
anyone
about
that
it,
is
but
an Amazon affiliate can toss your link on their whatever and get a little kickback from Amazon because your
oh,
book's on
that's
Amazon.
interesting.
Yeah, so like
Mhm.
literally, it doesn't even matter if you like me. I could just throw it on all of my stuff and
Yeah,
just be like,
that's how it goes.
that's a good thing, right? But those
Yeah,
are actually
it's public.
really interesting. Yeah, I started
Yeah,
doing that because I recommend like all of these books every episode on my podcast because my podcast is all about how to maximize your college experience, and these are just like incredible books that everyone should probably read while they're in school, as a young person. And so if you're gonna get them, my mentality is just if you don't mind just getting them through me, support the channel if you like the content.
do it. Do it. Yeah, you should. There you go. That's how you do it. Talk to me about the podcast. How did you decide to start that? Like, when did you start that? And for people listening, we don't do any interviewing or like digging before the person comes on the air because we believe in like the organic conversation that can be built just in
Yeah.
the connection that we sold books. So genuinely asking, like, where did the inspiration come from? Why did you decide
Yeah.
to do it? What's the story behind that?
And actually, just before I get into that, I thought Andres actually did go to Harvard based on his shirt. So that's I'm just kidding. He probably went to like University of Nebraska Lincoln or something. He's probably a
That's
Husker.
Go Big Red.
Go Big Red. Terrible football program. Okay, so
Until recently, no worse than the Vols. Let's be honest.
Hey, the Vols are on the up and up though, legitimately, and we've had a great
Yeah, I
season.
know. I've been
Proud,
witnessing. I'm like,
proud of those
wow,
guys.
this is crazy.
Do you know that Hendon
Unbelievable.
Hooker tore his ACL too? We lost that game. It was a horrible game, and he tore his ACL, which may screw up his NFL chances and all that stuff. Isn't that awful?
That's bad news. You hate to see it.
As you hate to
You
see
hate
it,
to
man.
see it.
That's just like anyone who's
Honestly,
ever played sports is
terrible.
just like, oh my gosh.
That sucks. It's big
Anyway,
time bad.
I don't want to get depressed on Vols football right now, even though I'm also still happy about it. So the podcast started because I'm a Christian, so that for me a big part of why I do anything I do is my basic 2 rules for life. Is love God, love people. So I
Mhm.
was literally 4th of July, and this is the kind of Christian background I come from. So I married my wife. The biggest thing for me was the values and faith to determine if she and I would be a good fit long term marriage wise. And so her parents, like her dad's a pastor, mom's a piano instructor, and they have like a marriage ministry and all this stuff. And they keep it's kind of weird in a good way. It's encouraging to have parents-in-law that are like come to this marriage retreat, but it's also like you gotta go a marriage retreat with your parents-in-law.
Yeah, it's your in-laws. Like,
Yeah,
okay.
kind of a fun thing. But those guys are great. I love those guys. And so literally last Christmas we literally do a Bible study at Christmas. All of the normal things. And one of my favorite verses is in John. I can't actually remember the chapter or exact verse right now, but there's a passage. I love reading the Bible for a lot of reasons, but read it in this sense is I love looking at doing a political analysis of like why things are happening in the Jewish culture in that area, because it's so interesting, because you can look at what's happened politically back then and like that kind of stuff happens today all the time.
Yeah.
It's really interesting how you can read stuff about history like that. But my favorite thing is he's basically being Jesus is on trial with this guy named Pilate. And if you never read the Bible, go check out John. You should totally read that. It's a great book to start with. And they're having this conversation. And in this case, Jesus has basically been thrown into chains for no actual reason other than these religious leaders really don't like him, basically, because he's more about the heart than he is about the, do this, sort of legalism is what's called. And Jesus, he's talking down there and he asks him, he's like, why are you here, basically? And Jesus says, I come, to testify to the truth, and everyone on the side of truth will listen to me. And Pilate says, what is truth? So that's one of my favorite things to think about is what is truth. And I've read a lot of really good books by like C.S. Lewis and this guy who called Ravi Zacharias. He was a really good speaker once upon a time. He has a weird, after he died, there was some weird news that came out, but I don't think it discredits his work, even though a lot of other people do. And, that verse came up in that Bible study for some reason. And it must have, I think it like impacted her mom, because she kind of brought up that same verse again. And it was in this time in the summer where my wife and I had said, okay, we're going to be a DSL for a year, and then we're going to see how everything goes and see if we like the lifestyle based on what our goals and values are. And we were in the summer, we're going to reevaluate. So we're in that time we're reevaluating, which we can go more into that later. But
yeah,
that
sounds interesting too.
that same verse comes up, in this conversation. She like has it printed out on sheets for us to like take home with us, so her parents are really thoughtful, and I actually took it, put it in my guitar bag. I play guitar. And it came up, and it just felt like God was immediately calling, like, oh my gosh, like young people, like it just hit me. Young people like don't really know what truth is, and that's like, wow. Yeah. It's like flashing before my eyes, my college experience of how you can be in a classroom and they're really pushing hard, for relativism and different things like that. And man, it just hit me. And actually, I was so motivated and excited. I have never done podcasting. I have never done a YouTube channel, except back in 7th grade, maybe, when Minecraft came out. I did have about 5 Minecraft videos that cumulatively got like 5,000 views. Something like that. It was awesome. It was these PvP stuff. But I was not knowledgeable at all. And I just felt like, oh, this is what I need to be doing. Like I need to be doing this stuff. And I had been writing a book, which I'm almost done with, for the past few months before that. So it all kind of just went in this content creation conversation kind of thing. Because the way I'm wired is the sort of analytical detective, why questions, loving talking about philosophy, things like that, loving talking about the bigger picture, interesting ideas, morality, things like that just really, really interest me. And I could talk about them for days. Your mindset, the mind is the most mind-boggling thing that you could ever think about, and I love thinking about it and understanding it more. And so I was like, cool, I'm just going to call this thing On the Side of Truth based on the Bible verse, and I'm just going to go and spit out some content. And so I spit out 10 episodes, in a pre-release album in a couple of weeks, and then I was meeting with Ryan Davis, who worked at Southwestern. If you don't know who that is, he's a marketing, director there. And I was figuring out how to drop them and stuff. And some people started to hear about it. And then I was at check-in where there's hundreds of, Southwestern people. And I was like, oh, I'll just drop it. And I basically had a bunch of people like, here, check this out, see if you like it. And a lot of people did like it. And I got to interview a lot of people, and so that was the inspiration, though, was just like, man, I really want to help young people. That's really what drives me. It's just, how can I help how can I help people? That's really what I get excited about doing. So, but that's where it came from. And then, through basically a bunch of failure and, figuring things out and getting like no listens and all that kind of stuff, we're on a spot where, where you figure out where's the best place to put your podcast. I know for you, it's like Instagram Reels is sort of your niche. It seems, at least from what I've seen. For me, it's like my people are on YouTube, and that's right there is where I get my reach, for example. And so I went all in on a podcast platform, and I still post on there. And then I went into the YouTube platform, and I've gotten 10 times more views in half the time on YouTube, just because of my target market being college students. So it's been great. I've had over 20,000 views in literally 2 months, maybe in a few days. It's been crazy. So people seem to like it, which is awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
I also have some videos that I posted and literally they got 0 views, 6 weeks ago, right? And you're like, oh, we're going away from this, But yeah, it's been great because that mission is still there. I've got I'm going to a private Christian school and talking to their high school, like 90 students that are like sophomore, juniors, seniors, about how to maximize their college experience. I've got 3 fraternities that, of 100 plus each that are going to have me in spring, and even like a student basic needs coalition, which is a club here at UT that want to have me on there too, and figure out how to help them in a lot of different ways, it's wild. Their connections, they have a lot of connections with people in Nashville and some kind of big wigs and big connections with the campus. So those are all really cool things, but it's essentially that's where it all started, was that one random conversation and just feeling led to go this direction. There's a big need.
Yeah, dude.
There's a big need, the research is crazy. When you go on and you look, 41% of college kids will graduate with a degree and they'll become underemployed, meaning their degree was basically worthless.
Yeah.
It's just sad to me.
Do you think the degree, now here's a philosophical question. Do you think degrees are worthless? Do you think that's actually what, maybe
it depends,
just because that, if that's the data, isn't that,
yeah,
I mean, okay,
hey,
let me preface this. Obviously, if you're going to law school or if you're going to be a surgeon, yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
Sure. I'm talking about like, I graduated with a communications degree. My brother,
Yeah.
Danny, did. And it's like, what the fuck is that even? Like,
No, right. No, absolutely. So we did an on-campus interview with a bunch of college students on Is College Worth It? So y'all could check that out on my YouTube channel. It's just really called Is College Worth It? And it's the same question we want to pose because I think it's an important question and everyone should consider it if they're thinking about going to school, right? Because one of the greatest things, and I'll talk about this later, I guess, that you can learn, especially while you're young, is that what your decisions are, whether you go to college or you go to tech school or you don't go to school, you start a business or whatever it is, whether you sell books or don't, maximizing what you're doing is always the correct thing to do, right? Because you can go to college and you can do it completely incorrectly, and then it's never going to be worth it for you, right? But if you can go to college and you completely maximize it, it's always going to be worth it for you. So I don't think college on its face is worth it one way or the other. I couldn't tell you. All I could tell you is where's your mindset at? Is your mindset in the fact that you're going to maximize what you're doing and squeeze the juice out of it? Or is it I'm just doing what everybody else is doing? If you're going to go along and do what everybody else is doing, probably everything you're doing is going to end up in mediocrity. If you're going to go maximize something, I will say maybe there's some degrees that probably are worthless, underwater basket weaving classes, things like that nature, but in general, if you're going to school and you're like, okay, I'm going to go network like crazy. I'm going to go work my face off for all of these years and figure out how to do something. Again, totally worth it. And you probably would be successful or not if you did go to school or not. So I think it just comes down to your mindset would be my short thing of, I think that's the bigger
fair.
picture.
That's fair. But then I think and I'm not playing devil's advocate because honestly, I don't know the answer to this. Some days I look back at college or I look at college, I'm like, that's not worth it at all. And then sometimes I go, but like college is what got me Southwestern, which wasn't the end all be all for me, but it got me here. You know what I'm saying? So it's like in some ways college was important. So maximizing is so objective because if you mean maximizing as in like go try to get straight A's and try to really get the good internships and join the good groups and blah 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 blah, that's a way to maximize it, but maybe that's still worthless versus I would say I maximized my college career versus I didn't do great in school, graduated with like the average CPA or whatever GPA, but Southwestern was huge. So I don't know,
I think it's a little different based on each person, right? It's where again, what is to maximize an experience is probably within the eye of the beholder, but we all know when we regret not trying our best, right? We all know when we're not maximizing something. So that, I think that comes
Yeah.
down to the personal thing, because, you know, everybody comes from a different background, right? I mean, if we're honestly talking about like long-term potential, I mean, people, the way they think, they have this rule book in their brain that they grow up with, that they're taught by their parents. And so, you know, if you're talking about someone's potential, you know, how big is someone's potential? Could everybody go be the president, right? Could everybody legitimately go do that? I want to say yes, but then we don't realize, like, my wife's a social worker, right? We don't realize all of the things that could mentally be barring someone from doing those things, right? So, like, for example, foster care. My wife wrote a little children's book on it, and she put some stats in the back. Over 50% of kids who graduate high school and from the foster care system, right? They will be drug addicts the rest of their life. If you graduate
Yeah.
in the foster care system, you know, you have free college. I think almost every state, you have free college. 3% of kids go to college from foster care. Right. So I think it has everything to do with your mindset and how you see the world, because if you're obviously growing up in a world where you don't know if anyone's safe and you can't trust people, how could you ever network? Right. So there's different layers of different things. So it's a very complex question. Is college worth it? Well, I think if you grew up in foster care, even if you get a 9 to 5, 50,000 hour, $50,000, $40,000 a year job, and, you know, you're just stable, totally worth it for that person.
Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I know I am. I wanted to give a quick shout out to the people that make this show possible, the people that bring this show to you. These are people who all sold books, and we're here to give a quick shout out to them in a spotlight about their company and what they're up to. So if you're interested, or if after listening to this, you're kind of wanting to know a little bit more, feel free to click on the links below to connect with these people. These are from an excerpt I have with them from a podcast that I do on the side. It's called Executive Exercises, where we take all our sponsors and they come into a think tank and share some awesome ideas about how to grow their business specifically on different topics. Go check that out. But I pulled some of the comments that they had explaining what they do and who they're looking for on their companies. And so if that sounds like you, like I said, click below. Hope you enjoy.
So yeah. And so money wise, and it just seemed like it was going to be the leads, which I wanted to go back to that because you mentioned this, and that's another thing that maybe Southwestern people don't understand is leads. That's kind of like you're saying, basically, imagine you show up to a town to sell books, you send a postcard out to every single family that has kids in school or young children, asking them if they struggle with any of the following subjects, yes or no. Would you be interested in hearing about a product that might help you with all those subjects, yes or no, name and address, and then you just waited at your HQ for like a couple of weeks, and then you got in the mail like 700 people returning that postcard saying, come to my house, here's where I live. Hi, are you the mom of the house? Yes, and we've heard of you. Great.
Yeah. Is this your handwriting,
let's-
Miss Betty? Yeah, that's my handwriting.
yeah.
You got a few minutes? It's, again, you're not selling every single lead that you sit down with, but the leads is kind of what interested me, because that kind of anxiety feeling that I talked about at Southwestern and the anxiety I had with Family Heritage, I honestly didn't think that was going to go away, but it has. It's gone away when I sold. You know, I still had a little bit of anxiety, but after that first knock, it goes away. But much less anxiety every week, because I know I have fresh leads coming in. And so even if this day doesn't work out, I know I got, typically our agents will get anywhere from 25 to 50 leads a week of people that they can go and call on.
That'll do for now. Like I said, make sure you click below to get some more information. And now back to the show.
Is it worth it for Steve Jobs? Well, it sounds like he grew up and he has this certain potential that it wasn't worth it for him.
Yeah, that's interesting. The other way you can also look at it is from the standpoint of how, like, I think where the answer is, you're right. It's like a spectrum, and in some cases the answer is yes, very clearly. Like we talked about, doctors, lawyers, accountants. Like, get your shit together, know it.
Yeah.
If you're gonna open my head to take out that tumor or whatever, like, I need you to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Go study.
Absolutely.
But on the other hand, I feel like there's certain places where it's like a pretty straight up no from like if you even look at it from a financial standpoint, where the price of college has gone up so much versus the quality that you're getting back. It used to be that people would go, hey, it costs and I'm speaking from an immigrant standpoint, right? If I was to tell my family or back in Colombia, hey, I have a degree from a university in America, and I go to Colombia, I am front of the line everywhere because the quality of education was that high, right? But the quality of education hasn't increase. In fact, it's proven by the fact that we need your podcast.
No, I agree
Because
with you. The percentage
that's
of college kids
crazy.
that cheat their way through school is in the 90 percentages. They're
Yeah,
cheating.
it's
So basically a degree
bananas.
of the actual information or like skill level of someone coming out of school, it's more lazy, it's more addicted to social media, and it's students that unfortunately have cheated their way through, so they haven't actually had the struggle to develop a skill. But you could also make the argument the opposite direction, that everything's on Google. So why are we even charging for college? If you actually think, that's a thing that like, I'm like, why is it so
YouTube.
expensive? Like, or for example, like how college is state run for a lot of, state schools, right? Okay. The only classes that seem to teach financial literacy whatsoever, and it's not even very clear in those classes, it's like finance and accounting classes. That's why I'm very grateful for doing that major.
Yeah.
It helps me in everything I do running businesses. It helps with the fitness
100%.
business that I run. It helps with my podcast. It helps with the nonprofit my wife and I run. It helps with all the stuff, right? But like, I don't understand why in every single high school, except at private school or like really maxed out funded, school districts where they don't teach financial literacy, right? So like high school kids, it's like, how hard would it be to just actually, do a class like that, right? I mean, they spend so much money on all these other things. It's like, so for me, it's just like, this would be more of like my conspiratorial thought here of conspiracies.
Yeah,
we could go down that road very
let's
right.
Let's do it.
We could go into that pretty crazy, but it's like if you think about it, how it's systematized, right? You're being groomed to be a sheep. You're not being groomed to think. You're being groomed to go work a job so you pay taxes. I mean, that makes sense for the system. And I'm not judging anyone who goes and does that their whole life. I think there's a lot of people who are plenty happy. Kind of, maybe 88% of people, or 80+%. I don't actually remember if it's 88, but it's in the 80% of people hate their job like most of their life. So I don't know if that's really a great thing. But the point being is that it's like, you have to go to college, you have to pay all this money in order to learn these things that frankly could be taught from a computer, from online reading, from reading a really good book in a classroom in high school. You could literally have a teacher read like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or a good financial actual literacy, like a Dave Ramsey book, right? In high school, and there are some that do that, but there's a vast minority, right?
Yeah.
It's like, why not? Because you're funneling people, right? You're funneling people into paying lots of money.
Go to school, get good grades, get a good job. That's the It's not a conspiracy. That it is what is happening, right?
It is what's happening.
If you're a public school, your funding is completely based on the conversion rate of kids that go to college.
Right.
That's how it works. Like how good your school is how many kids from your school, which means that school financially is entirely incentivized to get kids to go to college.
Yeah.
How is that like?
Yeah.
There
Because
it is, right?
it's some people, it doesn't make sense, right? It's just like, if you're going to college and you don't actually have a reason to go, it's like, you actually are making a poor decision. Like, I actually think that
from
you
a
should
financial standpoint.
Absolutely.
Terrible.
Absolutely. Because you're going to change your major. We interviewed like 10 college students. I think over half of them had already changed their major like twice. They're like juniors, and like, that's obviously like, okay, you got to figure out what you want to do, but like, why isn't there a class on figuring out what you want to do?
Yeah.
Like,
but
what are we doing?
On some dumb bullshit. Yeah, absolutely. I'm
like, there's
100%.
all these crazy classes. It's like, if you're thinking about why people struggle in life or are successful, it comes down to decision making. It comes down to your mindset. It comes down to perspective, right? And we can talk about 100 different examples from selling books, like people who are more or less successful, coming down to how you see the world and how you make decisions based off of what I would say principles, right? And, if you can teach people some solid values and principles, they're going to do okay in life. If you can teach them how to, love and respect themselves, they're going to do better in life. If you can teach them to not go crazy and have children out of wedlock, right? They are going to have better lives, right? So there's more, to it. And, I think that used to be parents, but obviously, if you look at the 50+%, it was 50 plus, but hopefully it's like 49 now, of marriages broken up. It's pretty tough to, count on parents to teach a lot of that stuff,
Yeah. It's what's the best way to put a like a way to say that? Yeah. Like if you grow up in a marriage that's broken, it's already like this. I don't
Yeah,
know the
dude.
stats. I can't say, but there's no way they're as viable, right?
It's just
as a
hard.
person who watched their parents be married, right? It's just much more difficult. The dynamics of trying to understand that,
Yeah.
besides it's all that. So yeah, the system is definitely set up to go to school, get good grades, get a good job, and pay your taxes,
I
and
think
get it all back.
the funny conspiracy side would be like, why do they not teach those things? Which would be total speculation at this point of like, oh well, because they want you to go to college to get your money. That's
No,
kind of
100%. No, but
yeah.
that is. I mean, if you could reward schools for if because schools, what really are, they're just recruiting vehicles, right? Like what I mean by that is like they're prepping kids to go to the next part of their life,
Right.
and from the money, and everybody follows the money. Everybody, I don't care who or how good-hearted, like you
Yeah.
follow
Yeah.
money. That's why a lot of people leave Southwestern. It's, you know what I'm saying? It's just sorry. It's just what has I've done this enough to know. At least 160 people I've been on here be like, better money. So everybody follows money. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with following financial incentives. But because of that, there's no financial incentive to tell a kid in high school who definitely has no shot in college or has no reason to be wasting money in college to go, hey, what are you good at? Well, I love cars. I love working on cars. You know what we're short in? Good mechanics. So why don't you go to trade school and be the best mechanic in the world and kick
Yeah.
some ass at it, right?
Absolutely.
Or be the best electrician and give those jobs a lot more of the notoriety that they deserve, right? Just like a doctor or a lawyer. We need all of these kinds of things, and there's no incentive for a school to tell a kid to do that. Nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's
of course,
crazy.
it's bad. And here's the thing: you try to go get your car fixed, and finding a good mechanic nowadays, you know what I
Pretty tough.
mean?
Yeah.
Or
No.
a good
Yeah.
electrician. It's like, what the fuck? What? Because
No.
nobody's incentivizing
I
that.
totally agree.
But
And
hey, I got a brother that's good at communications, whatever that means.
right. Yeah. Well, obviously the sales skills and different things are incredible. I mean, that allows you to do almost anything if you can learn how to communicate effectively and some business skills. I mean, and I think that would be an awesome thing to just where everyone could learn those things if they wanted to. Because I mean, again, if you're a good mechanic, that's one thing. But if you're a good salesperson and understand some business stuff and you're a good mechanic, that's like you can
Boom.
make a multi-million-dollar business, from doing that.
Yeah.
So it's just like, what's the skill, right? So that's just understanding what people want and what you have to give. And I did an episode on like learn stuff that other people aren't willing to learn because they will pay you to do it later when they don't know how to do it.
Yes.
You'll
know
be set up.
something you don't pay me.
Yes.
That's
usually how it goes.
that's the bottom line. If you know
Yep.
something someone else doesn't know, totally they should pay you. Because you
Absolutely.
went
Especially
through
if
the shit to learn it.
Yeah, so especially as a skill and it takes forever to like learn. Like literally that is the most valuable skill. I just read a book called The Dip by Seth Godin. I'll have to put that in all of my links on my YouTube videos now. And it's basically talking about like the most profitable things to do, or like the best things are the things where most people quit them. Because most people quit means most people can't do it. But if you can, there's a higher need, there's a higher, desire for what you have, and you can charge a lot more and you will get paid a lot more.
100%. Or at the very, very least, you will avoid paying someone else a shit ton of money for it. So to give you an example, I have a life insurance license, right? And I was in the insurance industry for a little bit there. I learned about the insurance industry. I learned about the financial industry, and I know like things that you're talking about, right? What as far as like whether it's investing or the financial planning. Even if I'm not the best financial planner in the world or the best insurance salesperson in the world, I know more than the average Joe. Not Joe Ignace, but the average Joe. But that alone is going to save me a ton of money just by knowing that, because like you said, most people are too scared, too lazy, or whatever. Maybe they're not, maybe they just don't want to take the time for whatever reason. Maybe they're not the right priority to learn that skill. And that's huge. I know something you don't. Pay me. I love that. Dude,
Yeah.
Good talk. Good talk. I'm glad. So the podcast, if you guys want to check it out, it's on. We can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and of course, please go to the YouTube page to find it. Definitely best if you go and experience it in the way that it's intended to be. So as Joe pointed out, he's working hard on the YouTube page to make sure that that's how people consume it. That probably means that it's best consumed through YouTube. So highly encourage you guys to go find that. On that note, with the podcast, what's the North Star? Like, where do you want to take this? What's the ideal?
Dude, I'm a dreamer, man. I'll tell you. I honestly,
Good.
I could see it going a lot of places, but I mean, the short term is just honestly just learn how to do it as well as I can, and I think the zenith. I mean, things that I love doing is speaking and writing books. I have a plan. I've planned to write 5 books. I'm almost done with my first one. But the idea of just going and speaking, inspiring people, and creating content that is just uplifting to people to where they can figure out what they want to do, figure out what inspires them and go after it in their life to where they don't hate their jobs, hate their life. I mean, that's the goal. What's that? What would that turn into? I don't know. I thought about, man, it'd be really cool if there was like a way cheaper way, a better way to basically be an alternative to college where we could have very long-term someone come through and, get some entrepreneurship or business training where they come through. And at the end of it, they've learned more in a shorter period of time that they can go apply in the real world than what you would get in a 4-year degree. I mean, that would be like the very, very long term. That would be freaking cool. But in the short term, just building up content to help people as much as possible, going out, being a professional speaker, things of that nature, being a great, having all this content that's uplifting to people. So
love it. I got a couple of connections I need to give you. One, I need to hook you up with Dylan Barr. You need to do a TED Talk. I think that's huge to kind of leverage whenever you're ready to do that. If you want to be like doing that, it's just a way to launch yourself.
Sure.
And then the other person I need to connect you with is Brian Harbin. And I think your podcasts have similarities, like overlaps, but his is a little different. And I'm sure you've heard, I think I've talked to you about Brian.
His is great. I just
great,
interviewed Brian on my podcast, which that will premiere how many weeks? I've got 3 in the running, and this is a short one this week because it's Thanksgiving time. So 1, 2, 3 weeks that'll be on my podcast with Brian Harbin.
So and by the time no, hang on. So when people listen to this, it'll be probably 3 weeks. So probably right as
this comes out, I'm interviewing Brian Harbin on the Knowledge Gap.
So go check it out too. Brian's been on our show. He's awesome.
Oh, is he?
He's the legend. Yeah, he's cool.
He's
cool
great.
Dude.
Yeah, we had a great conversation about how to maximize your college experience and what he's doing and all that kind of stuff. I think that was really cool hearing about all the things he does with like domains and actually I know Dylan Barr personally. I've met with him and know him, and I know he does the TED Talks too. And that's at some point we'll likely be reaching out. I have a friend who works with him, Christian DeBay. I believe he still works there. So
Christian's there? I thought Christian was at Southwestern. I didn't know that.
No, I think he moved. I don't know how many months ago, but he's moved over there recently. Christian was a pioneer of the Student Edge, I think, program for a little while.
That's right.
So
sweet. Anyway, okay, because we're moving right along. This flies, man.
We could talk
I wanted to ask you a little bit.
We'll have to do another
I
one.
know. Yeah, I know. And I want to get you and Seth and Zane on here together. Like do to really like highlight a little bit more about Elevate.
Sure.
But tell me about your involvement with Elevate and how you came into, because we've had Seth on here and we've had Zane on here. So how did you come across into this?
Yeah. So let's see. I guess it must have been over a year ago now. Basically, those guys founded. They were both doing their little side hustle, personal fitness coaching for like a year, and then they came together with this pretty brilliant idea, Bizzler Shred, where it's like, hey guys, you want to get in shape for this, Mexico trip that we go to? Pay us some money, we'll make a program for you. We'll do it. And by the way, it's a competition. So whoever has the best habits wins money. Competition. Southwestern people were like, yes, let's go. And so we had they had like 55 people sign up. I was one of the referrals, and they called me, and on my goals for that year, it was to become a personal trainer. So I love working out. I've been working out consistently since I was 14. So 11 years, really big into sports. Just did a Spartan race with my wife a couple months ago. Play soccer twice a week, work out, 4 times a week on top of that and all this kind of stuff. So, but they called me and I was just like, this is cool. Tell me about your business. And I basically was like, tell me about your business. And I learned all about it. And I basically sold them on my skills. I was like, yeah, well, do you guys know how like accounting works or like the legal side of stuff? And they're like, no. And I was like, okay, well, like that's what I have that background. And also, you know, I'm a DSL. So I bet you I could help manage, recruit, and bring all these skills to the table. And they were like, okay. And they were sort of hesitant for a little while. We did like a trial run for three to 6 months where I was helping out part-time while I was DSL. And, you know, I honestly wasn't selling unless they were outside of Southwestern, just because out of conflict of interest type thing. I didn't want someone signing up just because I'm like a DSL and they're like, oh, like, oh man, I got to say yes to impress him or something. You know, I didn't want that. I just want people to do it if they were going to do it.
That's really responsible of you. Well done.
Thank you very much. And so, you know, I was just helping with all the books, the back end stuff, keeping our records, you know, really clean, being like, hey, like CFO type stuff, like, hey, like we cannot buy whatever you're asking to buy. We do not have enough money or we'll go bankrupt, right? Or like, hey, this is a better investment, you know, stuff like that. And just helping with the recruiting, training, you know, culture building. You know, so we did that for a bunch. We went through a phase where we were just like, okay, we're really going to work on our product and build up our systems. And, you know, and then when by the end of the summer, we had everything really set up for a second Bizzler Shred and had more people sign up for that. And so in a year, you know, 12 to 13 months or so, did 6 figures, you know, in revenue first year, all part-time. And it was crazy. We had over 160 plus people coached and a lot of really good transformations, tons of testimonials, and the second Bizzler Shred's going. And actually, this is a great time to announce. You can cut this out if we're not allowed to announce it, but we are going to do a Bizzler Shred coming up in the future with Andres, with all of you awesome Southwestern people. You know, you can, you know, message me on the different platforms he's saying or comment or, you know, reach out to Andres. You can give my number, but if you're interested in this, but basically it's going to be same thing as Bizzler Shred. Get really in good shape because as in sales and recruiting and entrepreneurship, your body, you know, affects your mindset. Your mindset affects your performance. And if you're performing bad in sales, you make less money, you do worse, you feel worse. Right. And so the whole premise of that is like, you know, Bizzler's this awesome networking, fun time to catch up with all these alumni. So we're going to do a competition where you can come in there, you can put some money into the pool, get a workout program, get a nutrition program. We're partnering with HelloFresh meals and some supplement stuff. We can literally get you the whole kit caboodle where it'll save you so much time. And in a 4, 6, 12-month period, I mean, you can get totally in great shape, feeling good. And that's different for people, whether you're doing triathlons, wanting to just look good, feel good, or somebody who's, you know, wants to get really ripped or something. We kind of do it for everybody, but that competition's fun. You can put some money in, and whoever has the best habits, just like the summer, wins a huge cash prize on Bizzler.
That's right.
In Mexico, right?
Yep. And that's and we're still developing the details on this, so stay tuned for that. But this is, I'm glad that you mentioned this now. If you guys want to know more about that Bizzler trip, by the time this airs, we'll have a lot more details out. So just keep on, you know, follow us on our Instagram or sign up for our newsletter, and all of the details will be coming on there. It'll be direct to your phone that way. We love the fact we're going to be going, again, none of this is official because we've been having to like change up some stuff, but we're going more than likely it'll be in October. The exact dates is still to be determined, and it looks like we'll be going to Jamaica. So if you're listening to this at this point, this is somewhere in the December. This should be official by this point, but just in case it's not, I'm just saying. But either way, sign up is going to start here in the spring, and you guys can sign up as well to be part of the Bizzler Shred and win some money. I know we also have a variety of ways of, you know, collaborating on this, so that way people can show up to Bizzler looking hella good. So yeah, excited about that, man. That's a fun way to connect and collaborate.
I'm really good exciting at the on mic advertisements.
Yeah, just
yes. Man, I can't wait to get some more corporate sponsorships, man. If you're looking to recruit college students, come my way.
Maybe that's dude, that's epic. So you get involved. It's kind of more on the financial, logistical, accounting side, which is something that's huge. They don't teach that in Southwestern.
No, well, that's not taught anywhere, really. I mean, so this is one of the degrees that I will tell you that college is totally worth it for. Accounting, finance, understanding how to, you know, whether or not you should do something, understand free cash flow, understanding evaluation of a business, all that kind of stuff is just amazing to know and understand when you are making businesses, you know. So I think it's integral. So it was really cool to go utilize all those skills. And in the future, I will definitely, we're going to be hiring someone to do all that, because that's definitely not where my passion lies, we'll say. I'm much more like get in front of people, go do the sales, go talk to people, the networking, the big partnerships, but I will do all that until we're at the point where I don't have to, which would be great.
Yeah. That's really cool, man. I really, I like that. I love what Seth and Zane are doing. Like from a standpoint of the product, it's phenomenal. They they're very well versed in their shit when it comes to like both what their roles are there, and so it's good to hear about the fact that you came in there with your background and your expertise to kind of help them. I think they needed that third. Not that they were doing terrible beforehand. It's just somebody who could kind of like take that with a little bit more of experience. That's a good thing. So good job, dude. Good job.
Yeah.
If you guys want to hear more about the packages that Elevate Wellness offers, please go check out.
It's Get Started,
YouTube, Facebook, or wait, I think you're something unplugged. Your microphone, I think, unplugged. It's coming. Anyway, well, so yeah, if you guys want to check it out, there are different packages that they offer, and there's different really options that you can have.
How we doing now?
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yes, getstarted.elevatewellness.com. That's where you want to go. Get started.
Yeah.
Oh, .fit. Terrible. Let's redo it. Getstarted.elevatewellness.fit. That right there is where you can learn about it.
Cool. And also we'll probably have a link below in the description notes of the episode. So just scroll down on whatever
please
you're
do
listening.
that.
And then click that and we'll begin.
Yeah.
So that way you guys can get more information, talk to someone from Elevate, see if it's the right fit. Fit.
Hey. You should literally have like that little, drum or something like on a keyboard. Yeah.
Well, there's so many good ones. We have so many good zingers on here every once in a while. Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I know I am. I wanted to give a quick shout out to the people that make this show possible, the people that bring this show to you. These are people who all sold books, and we're here to give a quick shout out to them in a spotlight about their company and what they're up to. So if you're interested, or if after listening to this, you're kind of wanting to know a little bit more, feel free to click on the links below to connect with these people. These are from an excerpt I have with them from a podcast that I do on the side. It's called Executive Exercises, where we take all our sponsors and they come into a think tank and share some awesome ideas about how to grow their business, specifically on different topics. Go check that out. But I pulled some of the comments that they had explaining what they do and who they're looking for on their companies. And so if that sounds like you, like I said, click below. Hope you enjoy.
That's okay. And actually, and this is good to, I had Nick kind of explain this a little bit too, but because I've been in the insurance industry before, for people who are listening, like, how do you make 115% commission?
The way I explain it to people is the insurance companies we represent. So we're a broker. All these companies we work with, they know they're not really going to be making any money off the sales that I make for the first several years, but they don't care about that. They know these clients are going to be on the books for 10, 15, 20, 25 years. So they know they're going to make money over the long haul. And so part of the reason agents are able to make so much is there's all these companies out here, and they're all competing for the broker's business, because these companies don't actually have their own in-house sales force. They have independent contractors. And so if their compensation or their commission levels that they offer aren't competitive, I'm not going to place any business with them.
Hello. Off schedule moment. Wanted to tell you about Southwestern Real Estate. They're 99% drama free. Only 99, not 99.9. So it's a bit spicy. Kind of like this episode. Anyway, they will learn you to kick ass at real estate. So make sure you guys click the link below. Get in touch with them. Okay, back to work. Bye. That'll do for now. Like I said, make sure you click below to get some more information. And now back to the show. All right, bro. Let's jump into some Southwestern stuff, and then do a quick recap of. We're gonna have to have you back on because I know you have to jet here in about 25-30 minutes. So I want to get some of your Southwestern experience in. How did you get recruited? Your origin story. I love hearing about how people got involved in the first place.
Yeah.
And then if we have some time, maybe a ponytail or two there at the end. But first, how the hell did you who talked to you about this? You were sitting there minding your own business in Knoxville.
Jacob Green was my guy. I was in class at my economics 201 freshman year, spring semester. Jacob comes in, or maybe Danny Johnson, because they were recruiting together. I don't remember who made the announcement. I think it's Jacob. Jacob makes an announcement. I'm like, dude, I had made the decision to maximize college. So I was like a freshman and I'd already gone to like 2 job fairs at the time. And that was funny, man, because I also had interviewed for all these like on campus little positions and I was involved in way too much, looking back of just, I would wake up at 6 and not go to bed till midnight. I would hit the gym. I'd play soccer 3 times a week and on the weekends. And I was in like 5 clubs and like 2 leaders. It's crazy. But I got really good at time management for sure. And I learned a lot, but anyway, and so I was like, I want to maximize college. I'm not saying no to opportunities. I felt like in high school, I was like too cool for school. And I really felt like I had missed some opportunities, to network and connect with people. Funnily enough, because of my girlfriend at the time in high school had got me into Future Farmers of America. And I loved it. FFA, bro. I loved it. It was fun. I did an interview competition. I got to meet all these people and they were all like real country folks or whatever, but they were super nice. And it was nice to have like a different community than just soccer players or whatever, even though I loved my soccer team at the time. But it just experienced that different things that you could challenge yourself with. It kind of just sparked something in me. And so anyway, I ended up going to one of those info sessions, and Danny Johnson did my actual info session. Jacob was the guy who called me. We're going through the thing. I go meet with him a bunch of times. And, I don't know. I don't remember much of the actual like content. I was like, yeah, like I'm excited. Like, let's go, I'm ready to let's get the job. Pretty excited about that until he basically was like, here's the legal document to sign to be on the team, which really is like, is independent contractor form. It doesn't mean like anything, to be honest. Yeah. It's literally just like more of a commitment in your heart. And I remember being like, well, like if I didn't want to go, I don't have to. Right. And I was like, he's like, sure. Yeah. It's whatever. If you want to be on the team, just spot on my team if you want to be here. And I was like, okay. I remember filling it out. I didn't do a single part of parent work. Jacob just set it up without me even knowing, like just, hey, called my dad. It's like, I was like, Dad, someone's gonna call you. I don't know. I never talked to my parents about doing it or not doing it, or if it's a scam or all of these things. My dad told me like 4 years later, he's like, I thought it might be a scam, but he was going to come meet me. So I was like, I'll go talk to him, and they ended up talking about stars. My dad's an astrophysicist. So they talked about astronomy or whatever. And Jacob loves that kind of stuff. So they hit it off and answered all of his questions or whatever. So I didn't hear anything about, like, it was just me going through it. And I was so busy in school that I could only meet with Jacob once every 2 or 3 weeks. It was like, it was not a weekly normal like meetup thing. And I would cancel on him a lot or reschedule or meet at these really weird ass times, like Starbucks, everything's closed, 7:30, he's still on campus being a trooper, right? Being a good leader. And we'd meet.
Trying to phone.
He talked to me about something that seemed completely irrelevant, and I was like, why are we doing these? I remember thinking like these trainings are dumb. I've told him this before, so he knows. He's a great recruiter, so they were obviously important. But anyway, I didn't care. So I went through school. We get to the end. He told me a few years later, he's like, I almost cut Joe from my team because I was so like all over the place. He's like, we have no idea if this guy's coming or not, And if you've never done sold books, it's just a lot of people quit basically. Like, the interviews, they'll say they're coming and then they won't because they'll panic or they'll read something or whatever. And I wasn't that kind of person. I was sort of like, yeah, like I said I'd come, so like why would anyone not come? Like I don't get it. I was like, whatever. I'm just a man of my word. That's something my dad taught me. So anyway, I remember getting ready for sales school. I was like, I'm not touching my sales talk. I don't have time for this. And the week before sales school, I finished finals. And then I basically learned my sales talk in a few days really well. And I did all these little online modules. And I was really disciplined with it, or whatever, because that's just how I did it. I just finished everything. Then I did that. I was all in on that. I remember going to sales school and having a good time and crushing, feeling like I was crushing it, and had a really good first summer. But that was basically how I got recruited. Almost cut from the team. Never talked about it with my parents. Never thought about quitting.
Perfect. That's the ideal pony right
there.
Yeah,
dude. I am a ponytail. Like it was, I don't think Jacob had to do much other than show up.
I think honestly, all of us that have been on the show, like anybody that sold books and stuck around the whole summer, is you have to be a pony.
Yeah, you just are.
Like we like to think that like we are such amazing recruiters, and there is an art to leading people right to the next emotional step and coaching them correctly and teaching them how they want to be taught. So there is skills there, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like it's kind of like when you're selling. If they're not a buyer, doesn't matter how good your sales talk
Well,
is, your
sure.
closing, like
I will push back on it though, because there's definitely a higher or lower closing percentage based on, I would say, personal development and growth if you're in that leadership position, because what you're doing in recruiting is you're really selling a vision or theme of what working with you is going to be, feel, and basically a success story. So, if you're not preaching a good success story or of confidence of where you're in it for this person, you're not going to recruit a lot of people, and I've actually seen people get ponies on their team who are just awesome, super excited, and be such terrible leaders that they end up quitting. They force that person to quit because they're doing such a poor job. So I actually disagree.
No. I understand that. It's just kind of like when you have a pony in the book field, but you don't know you're closing, you might lose that sale too, right? It's the same idea. Like from the standpoint of assuming that you showed up, or the manager shows up the way they're supposed to, right? By having good habits and preaching, practice with the preaching, all that. Like assuming that's the case, right? The person who ends up becoming really good at selling the books is almost impossible to do. Like think about where like top first years come from, or the people who become DSLs. A lot of the DSLs we've interviewed on here have similar stories like you, where they were like, I almost got cut from the team. I was not, my first summer was terrible, right? Yvette Morehouse sold 1,800 units first summer. Nobody thought much of her, right? At the time, good job, you hit Sizzler. Great. She becomes one of the most legendary DSLs company's ever seen, right? So it just kind of depends on like the person inside and if it's the right place, right time. But you're right. I mean, if the person doesn't have it to teach and lead correctly, yeah, you're gonna lose that good recruit.
If you really think about like the recruiting position, it's really personal branding. You're learning how to personally brand yourself, and that's honestly why it's such a difficult job, is because most people don't know how to do that, and they struggle with it because they're trying to say or do the right thing when you actually have to say or do the right thing based on you, which is a really tough thing to teach to people. Like it's like wanting to bash your head against the wall. So hard to teach to people is like, how do you brand yourself, And what's funny is most people that are in that position don't even realize that's what they're doing too. It's a funny, right? Because they're all so young, they're just like, I do this, but they don't realize the reason people are following them is personal branding. But if you can learn that it is personal branding, it is a lifelong skill that will set you apart from everybody else and allow you to do a lot of things.
That's an interesting thought. I don't think anybody has mentioned that, like dropped it like that on the show yet. Which I think you hit it on the head. It's true, because the number of times I never become a DSL, but I can tell you from the other side, the number of times we've had someone on here say he just had something, or she had something I wanted when I was sitting at the info session. Like this person knew something I didn't. Really, what that is that they're branding themselves really well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, absolutely correct, man.
Why do you ever want to buy a book by Simon Sinek or Dale Carnegie or all these people? It's because they have this really good personal branding image of what you're going to get by following that person. It's just tribe building, right? So you're practicing tribe building, which is why I think it's a really great thing to go learn. However you're going to learn it, is how to go build a little tribe of culture that wants to live, breathe, and do something that's all similar based on that you basically created. It's wow. You can't do anything big unless you can learn how to build a little tribe first,
Absolutely. And they become advocates and make them become missionaries. 100%, sir. So where did you sell that first summer?
First summer was Dallas, Texas area. It was in Crum. Crum. Yep. Hot. Very hot. Yeah.
Hot
so
summer.
I was over towards Flower Mound. I lived with, oh boy, I can't remember their last name right now, but they were great. The dad was a Boy Scout director. Mom owned her own small business. They were super nice. It was nicer than my house growing up, honestly, which was pretty lucky. And I remember going in there. I was like, well, it's like the nicest place I've ever slept.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was a great first summer. I had the craziest
Did you get
PR.
off to a fast start?
No,
I was going to say,
I sold like 38 units the first week, 68 the second week. Maybe like 112 the third, then 200, 300. And then I eventually hit 707, by the end of the summer.
Nice.
But my first summer was crazy because I did have half my customers cancel. So I wrote up 45 and ended up 22. So that was a weird thing.
What
Yeah, dude,
happened
it's
there?
crazy. I just vehemently sucked at cash collection. I was just really bad at it. Yeah, I would, based on the way it was set up, and we never did it again after this. I don't know how it could possibly have ever been set up this way, or what happened. But you basically, if you scheduled out payments, they didn't give you money now, but you did it like, oh, here, like pay it next Friday, because being like the most nicest person ever, like, oh, like you don't have money today, like, oh, it's okay, you don't have to pay the whole thing, just pay like all of it next Friday, and you schedule it, and it would count as units. It's like they probably had money to do something down, and I was just like, I just didn't know any better, 18.
Sure.
Needed the money.
Sure.
Yeah, I was like, oh, they'll pay, because that's what I would pay. Like they're gonna pay, right? They're not gonna pay if you don't get money. So money, the exchange of money is the commitment to the rest. So yeah, dude, it was a crazy first summer. I probably had the worst PR of most people who's ever existed. Probably top 1% of people with bad
What
PR.
happened? Or is that a ponytail?
Dude, I don't know if I'd call it a ponytail. I just had all these moments, man. And people were really rude to me. His terrible Facebook posts. I was the rookie who'd go knock till 9:30 and dark and just get yelled at off the porch at dark places. No appointments. And it was just, I was all in, man. I was like, I'm gonna figure it out. I don't care. You can't stop me. And I never, honestly, the rest of the summers, I really never worked. I worked late only with appointments. Once it got dark, I was like, I'll go home. I sold more because the PR aspect of things is just astronomical if you can just get your PR to be better.
Okay, I'm telling you this as a DSL because I've been saying this for fucking a decade now. People are like, you got to work till 10. And my first summer I worked late too. But there was often times where I was like, I don't think people should work past dark if they don't have appointments, especially first years.
If you're a rookie, I mean, you got to also just the rookie just building confidence. They're just not going to be able to do that the first few weeks. But yeah, I agree. I mean, and also it's just like, hey, if you don't have appointments, it's like, it's kind of sucks. It just gets to that point where you start to resent it. And so I really tried to avoid resenting things. I tried to condition my mind to where like, this feels good to go do it this way. Right. So always working until 9 o'clock, no matter what. And then I'd go till it's dark. Right. Just having a guarantee that no matter what. And so you hit that no matter what, and you should feel good about it. And you don't have to feel guilty or something that you're doing something wrong. And I think people just put too much pressure on themselves, Yeah. And it's actually, it's so funny. It's a catch-22. It's you take the pressure off, you do better, Yeah.
Amazing. Well, and not just that, but like for the key thing that you just mentioned, which I think is huge. So, and it's been a while since we talked about this way, but I always brought this up that we had a kid. I specifically remember my second summer. I won't say any names, but it was just one of those kids where, and again, I might get pushback from you on this because you're a DSL, but there's certain kids who are at sales school that you're like, this person should not go sell books. They're not ready.
No, that's okay.
Way in hell.
There's definitely people like that.
But you need the numbers or you need somebody for the HQ, so you just send them anyway. And this kid, it just wasn't gonna work. It just wasn't gonna work. It was like physically just not gonna work. I won't go into details because if I say who, maybe he had a speech impediment. We'll just say that.
Okay.
And so it could come off like he was a great human being, lovely human, like such a tough worker, great guy. But the problem is when you're at a door and you need to be smooth, calm, collected, and confident for the sake of not coming off scary or creepy, that's key. That's very key. and it was just hard for him to do so. On top of the fact that he had a speech impediment, on top of the fact that it was first summer, you're new, you're a rookie. He didn't know his sales sucked. So it's like within weeks we had a bad PR situation going on because he was creeping moms out, and it's not his fault. It's just he was trying his best, and I'm not trying to say that he shouldn't have not been allowed to. Like I'm just saying he wasn't ready. It wasn't like there was more work that needed to be done to prep him correctly, at least to deal with what was likely going to happen. We all knew what was going to happen. We all knew as managers.
Yeah. I think,
and of course that happens. PR shit's a fan. Sure. He's in the town next to me, and now it's the whole org and we're in Massachusetts, right? Which is not a small, big place.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I think our policy with that was always just like, like they can stay for another week. We'll be honest with them. We're just like, hey, like currently you're not going to do well. Like you need to stay another week, or if you don't want to do the extra training, then, we can't send you out there and you can go home. And most kids would pick going home because they realize and they understand. Some kids will stay the extra week, but then they'll just go home in the extra week because they really don't have what it takes, right? And that's fine.
Yeah.
There's no
nothing wrong
judgment
with
on that
that,
person. I will say
Yeah.
though, if you do have the mindset and the work ethic, like my older brother Josh had a speech impediment and hit Bizzler his first summer and just sold 6,500, 6,600 units this last summer. So
But
again,
this kid had it was heavy.
Sure.
speech impediment.
Josh,
just
my brother
normal
had a stutter.
conversation.
Sure, my brother had a stutter versus maybe
Sure.
I don't know what he had if it was a tongue tie thing, but yeah, I mean, it would make it more difficult to go sell if you cannot talk. So yeah,
his approach at sales school when we were practicing, and we had to take him one-on-one, was 2 minutes.
right.
It's how long it took him to get it all out. It's you can't, as a mom with kids at home, it's so hard. And it's not his fault or
it'd be
hers.
tough. It's not. Yeah, it's just maybe not the correct position. For example, different.
And he's super coachable. He's amazingly coachable. So he's at
trying his best.
9:35 in the darkness of Massachusetts. Just it was bad. So anyway, the point is, I'm glad I'm glad that you're saying it's refreshing to hear DSL say it's okay if you knock till dark because it's bad. It's better for your PR that way.
Well, there's a lot of different schools of thought on this. But I started 7:30 my second summer just because I lived in my turf, and I was good enough to where I wouldn't get people. I didn't really have that PR from it. Most people probably couldn't pull that off. Not to say I'm amazing, it just takes a certain way to diffuse somebody where they're not making a Facebook post at 7:30 in the morning or a certain families to go to if you're knocking, right? I never did that after my second summer. I actually would start at 8 or 8:30, and we would sleep an extra 30 minutes to 6:29 or whatever,
Europeans will start till 9.
Yeah, right. So there's different schools of thought, obviously, and what it seems to me is when I had more sleep, I was fed, I wasn't rushed, I would sell better because I'm not falling asleep in my sales talk, right?
Wow.
And so
Imagine.
I'd still get, I would get my best weekend sits is 120, 122 or something, where it's 20 a day on average. It's about the technique. I think people put too much effort on I got to work I have to feel tired. That's how it works. Most of the time, I didn't feel exhausted. I felt fine because I would eat and have Gatorade in the car and water, and I'd be really hydrated. And I'd have so many sit downs. You're just chilling with people. It doesn't need to be this really intense thing. If you're willing to kind of watch people and, I'm not going to do that again. That was a weird reaction. Let's avoid that.
No, absolutely. I'm with you. I just always thought it was so interesting. Again, I was coachable, so you just do the thing. You wake up at 6 or 5:59. You do the cold shower.
Right.
All that stuff is necessary. All that stuff, I get that. What you're talking about is just going into your day well rested. Imagine selling books well rested and fed at 8:30. It's great.
Yeah, it's a different ball game, I think. And I just try to take it to the approach of okay, what if I was doing this all year round and this is just my life? How would I want it to at least make it more sustainable? And I would just sell a lot more doing it that way. I was well, there's no finish. I'm just going to go do good, do my best.
And then go home.
Go home, sleep, do it again, have a Sunday off.
Out of your 6 summers, which one was your best summer?
My fifth one was my best. I sold 11,800 something units, and then my seventh.
Not bad.
That's not bad. Sixth one was 10,026 or something. I basically hit 10,000, then went home so I could get ready for my wedding. So that was that was 11 or 12 week summer. But both those summers were awesome. The 11,001 was during COVID. Actually, that was the COVID summer. And then the 10,001 was the summer after COVID.
Dang. So how did you adjust to that? And
bro, I didn't. I barely did anything different. I did it almost the same. The thing to do is just not go to areas that are blue. my county was a county of 33,000 or so in Virginia, Pulaski County. You know, in that area, it's just like you're so far from a city, like that. You know that it just wasn't the same. You know, it's like one or two people had COVID officially that entire summer in my area. Everybody's like, "You a handshaker?" I did that for the first week or two, and then everybody's a handshaker. It's like, all right, you run into a couple people, you wear a mask or whatever. You just have one, you know, in case you need it. You're like, oh, I got one. Yeah, dude, it was. What was great was everybody was at home. It was awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
everybody's at home.
Like? I mean, everybody's home. Everybody's home. So
you just sell like 220 units is normal. 150 a day is like your average. Anything below 150, you're just like, wow, this day sucks. You know. I mean, I had so many. You just have so many, you know, steak days. It was great. It was just you're not trying. Actually selling books. If you come down to it, like it's not hard if you're in front of mom, dad, and the kids. They almost always buy if mom, dad, and the kids are there, right? Now, steak day's 200. Steak day's 200.
Oh,
burger day, bro. Did you even sell books?
You're one of those people.
Probably didn't even do it.
You're one of those people. You're one of those people that call steak. No.
200. Yeah. Burger day is 100. You don't deserve a steak.
Mr.
For 100 units.
Mr.
That
I
is
sold
trash.
2016, Mr. I sold 2016 and later. When I was selling books back in my day, a steak day was 100 units. Period.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Wow, lots of steaks for little result, in my opinion. Gotta have the carrot further along. You'll probably sell some more.
Sure, but that was back in my day. You hit steak. Anybody that said steak.
What was your year? Your last summer?
2012. My last summer was 2016, bro. But I did not do so hot that summer. My best summer was my first summer, in upstate New York. But when we hit steak, it was 100 units. So you're one of those new kids. Ugh,
man. Throw her back. You're one of those guys that. So you decreased every year, Andres?
Yes, sir. That was me.
Terrible.
No, it was great. It was great. I learned more in my third and fourth summer than I learned my first and second.
Oh, that's
100%.
Good. I'm glad you learned a lot.
My third summer, I was so off schedule, but it was a great thing for me because I learned a lot about like how I can and what I am not willing to do. Like, so I started resenting it.
Right.
So my third summer, I was like, fuck this. Like, I got convinced again. I felt really bad. Like, it was a really bad place to be because I felt like I got talked into doing this again.
Right.
And I was like, this is stupid. This is stupid that I'm out here. And I was pissed. And so I learned a lot about me. It was like I learned about creating boundaries and being able to tell people, hey, look, I really respect you and I really admire you. And you're great. Right. But I don't want to do this again. And I need you to be okay with me not doing this again.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
At the time, I know Southwestern's changed a lot because of Groom and Danny and a lot of the DSLs. You guys were really trying to change this a lot, which is really good. To hear a DSL say this 20 years ago, what you're saying would have been bananas. Like, I went to work at 8:30. No, nobody would ever say that. But back when I was there in 2014, like that was not the culture. The culture was like very high pressure to come back, very high pressure to stay, very high pressure to recruit, or you're like not even important. So like even if you were coming back but you didn't recruit, nobody really gave a shit about you. Nobody included you in any of the org meetings. Like it was not good. It was a bad place.
You're like the weird cousin.
It changed a lot.
BO.
Yeah. And I came back again. I got talked into it twice. So my second summer, I was actually on schedule physically. Like I was going and knocking on the doors, but I mean bare minimum. But in my head, I was not even doing the second. Like it was one of those where I was like, I wasn't going to the movies anymore, which good. But I was like, again, I was pissed. I'm like, how the hell did I get talked into this again? This is bullshit. And so immediately I was like, I'm done. Like, see ya. And no hard feelings. Everything I learned and I do now, I attribute to what I learned. But
yeah.
Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I know I am. I wanted to give a quick shout out to the people that make this show possible, the people that bring this show to you. These are people who all sold books, and we're here to give a quick shout out to them in a spotlight about their company and what they're up to. So if you're interested, or if after listening to this, you're kind of wanting to know a little bit more, feel free to click on the links below to connect with these people. These are from an excerpt I have with them from a podcast that I do on the side. It's called Executive Exercises, where we take all our sponsors and they come into a think tank and share some awesome ideas about how to grow their business specifically on different topics. Go check that out. But I pulled some of the comments that they had explaining what they do and who they're looking for on their companies. And so if that sounds like you, like I said, click below. Hope you enjoy.
On a note from I'm trying to think, like, if I was looking into this, and for people who listening who might be like, hey, this actually, I want to learn more about this. What's the barrier to entry? Like, maybe I'm sitting here and I'm like, man, that sounds cool, but I don't know shit about insurance. Like, why would I want to go talk to people?
Yeah, the barriers to entry, I think, are really pretty low. Everybody would probably have a different opinion, but in terms to just be able to get out the door and go sell, you've got to get a license. I have my life and health license because you needed the health license at Family Heritage, or if you want to sell Medicare products or certain types of health products, you
Right.
have to have the health side. But what it takes to get either one or both of those licenses roughly the same. You take a study course. You may need to study for 15 hours. You may need to study as many as 30 hours. But like with Cardinal, we've got a pretty cool course. From studying to getting your license can be as quick as like 7 to 10 days if you really 15 to 20 if you're moving at a medium pace. And beyond that, if it takes you longer than that, you're just not really all that motivated to start because it's not a difficult process.
Yo, let's get off schedule one last time. Go watch a movie, or maybe you should figure out how to work at EnLight.Energy. Alex Black is crushing it down there, and a former DSM, Julio Hernandez, are both running this company. And man, they are cranking 10 people on their team and growing. It's enough that Alex only has to sell like one thing every other week and make over 6 figures. So if you want to learn more about that and maybe help change the planet, click on the link below. That'll do for now. Like I said, make sure you click below to get some more information. And now back to the show.
Have you ever read the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People?
Yes. Have I ever read that book?
You
Yes.
have? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think
Every
about?
book
Yeah, right. Okay, that's a great book. There's a part in there, just the way you talk about your experience. I'm like, I don't know if this is that you actually think, but you kept saying you get talked into it. But it was actually we that book would basically claim that that's reactive language. And it talks about being proactive with your language. I'm just curious of what are your thoughts? If you know what proactive is, basically saying that like I decide how I feel. I basically am in control, extreme ownership, basically. And then reactive is like someone else hurt me. A great book you should read. That's also going to be on my videos.
Let's probably start with that. Yeah, that's both of those books. It's the same idea where like everything, life is happening. It's not happening to you. It's reacting to you, right? The same idea where it's like,
yes,
yeah. So I think that's a double-edged sword, and this is glad that you asked because there is some of that, right? I still chose to get in my car and get the fuck over to Pennsylvania and knock on some people's door. I could have, right? 100%.
Yes, the
So
feeling
there is that.
The feeling of feel like you were sold on it is not a good personal branding to that recruiter, right? It doesn't put you in a position to win, in my opinion.
Right. Also,
and I've messed that up before, by the way, too. I'm not judging that recruiter because as you're a young recruiter, you're being like, I don't know what to do. I'm trying my best.
And you're just taking orders from like what's always been, right? And so that's what I'm saying. That feeling's changed. So here's what I'll say to this. Of course, I still chose to go out there, just like I chose to be off schedule, and I own both of those things, right? But at the same time, Southwestern, the number one thing that Southwestern does differently from a technical sales training standpoint that nobody else does that I've seen anywhere else is the buying atmosphere. And what I mean by that is the opportunity to giving the client or the prospect the opportunity to say no. Yep. Right, which is so radical in the sales world. It's phenomenal. Yeah. And then it puts a pressure more on the ability to prospect in big numbers, because then all of a sudden it's about ponies, which is the whole nature of what we're doing here, right?
Yep.
However, that principle was not applied in August at checkout for anybody. At least when I'm not saying that's how it is
when
now.
You were there.
I know it's changed, but when I was there, you were at checkout and it was all about why you needed to come back. And if you said you didn't want to, if you were like, I don't know, let me think about it, the pressure that you get that came with that, right? The FOMO that was instilled, it was like psychologically like hard to say no. So there is something to that too. I'm not saying, again, you're right. I chose to go out there. I chose to be out there in Vermont to knock on the doors or not, right? To go home early, whatever. That was totally
Yeah.
me, and I own all of that.
I'm really glad that we're talking about this, because it's good for you to I think every person needs to understand that at some point you're going to die. This is from a Mike Posner video where he does Pill and Ibiza live in a slow way acoustically. I love this video. And he says, everybody wants you to think that you're not going to die, and they want you to buy what they're selling and do what they want you to do. Right. And that's really, really important to figure out. It's really important to figure that out. And for me, it's like, I never felt sold to sell books. I knew I wanted these skills, and this is probably the quickest way to get them for me personally, in my specific, what I wanted to do. Right. That's not going to be the same for everybody, but knowing that you are one day going to die, how do you want to spend it? And Rich Dad, Poor Dad's like, gain your skills in whatever areas you need to get them, and then get out. Right. So there's all these different, philosophies to it. But one thing that's really interesting about saying no is there was some experiment, like the electric probe experiment. If you've heard of this before, where they put somebody in a room, hey, press this button. It's like authoritarian experiment to see who will press the button, and they crank it up, and they're like, the guy's not actually getting injured, right? But he's in there acting like he's getting hurt, and they crank it up to what they say would kill him. And 80% of people will press the button and kill someone just because someone else told them to. 20%, say no to that. Right. And so you saying yes is because you're an agreeable person, at least naturally used to be. That's how sort of like you were wired or were raised, right? You were an agreeable person. And so 80% of people are agreeable, right? So obviously being asked and stuff like that, you can still do it, but it's not going to set you up to win. You've got to know why you're doing something, or it's a waste of time. It's the same thing what I was saying at the very beginning, full circle. You got to maximize what you're doing because you want to do it. Why? Right. And you've got to realize that you're more likely to be agreeable than not. Like, you are more likely to agree, like 4 out of 5 chance that you're an agreeable person and that you would press that button. Like, think about that for 2 seconds. Like, that's definitely why you said yes. But like, really, is that how you want to live your life? Right. And obviously you figured out, like, not really. It's okay to be disagreeable. And I think there's a part of culture that makes you want to like fit in. And actually, I think people find a lot of happiness by not fitting in. They find their tribe, they find their group, but they're like not fitting into like the status quo, I think, is actually the direction that's helpful.
I think also what didn't help, yes to all of that, agreeable. Yeah. I think also what didn't help is the pressure, because what happens is, and you'll find this less likely the more you stay or the higher up you go. So as a DSL, you might not experience this as much, but like when you leave, that's all the people that you've known for, like, for my case, 4 years. So when I left, I had no friends outside of Southwestern.
Right.
And so I was like, what the fuck? And this is what drove my point home, was that every year up to then I had gotten Christmas cards from different people in the company, in the corporate office.
Sure.
And all this birthday wishes.
You got Christmas cards?
Yeah, we got Christmas cards.
I get Christmas card.
And then this summer I decided to stop selling books. Do you think I got invited to people's shit or got Christmas cards or people? No, because I wasn't making them money anymore.
I totally get it.
Totally fine. So
right.
So it's I think it's a double-edged. I think it's a two-sided thing, right? So for people out there, I'm not here saying, oh, they tricked me. No, because again, I learned a lot those summers, so they were still worth it to me. Right? I'm not saying they weren't worth it, but I am saying that had I known or been able to understand what I understand now, I would have been like, fuck no. 1 and 2 summers are good. I don't need to keep doing this. I don't like it anymore. There's other things like school I need to worry about, like financially, there's other things, right? So yeah.
And there's a naturalness, right? There's a naturalness to it as well. It's like, you're moving on, doing something else. These people are so busy. I mean, honestly, the people are so effing busy, which, for me is like a lifestyle. Was like, well, I didn't want to be that busy all the time, at least doing something that I know I'm not going to do for 50 years, right? I don't want to be this busy. So that's a lifestyle choice. So obviously when you do leave, it's like, you don't see a lot of those friends until they slow down, which they either will or won't, I mean, God bless Virgie Sanford for the way she works. She is literally the percentage of people that could do what she do at the level she does for that many years. It's just like, oh my gosh. Like I have the utmost respect for all those DSLs and stuff, but I'm just saying that, like, like a lot of my friends are just busy recruiting all the time. They're at Sizzler right now. They're at a trip. They're, it's like, oh, well, I guess I'll call them, and that's one of the things I'm doing with my podcast. So it's a way to keep up with everybody, keep up with me, but it can be also, it's so positive on how to maximize your college experience. It's a great recruiting tool. if you're selling books and recruiting people.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, listen to this really cool third-party podcast that's totally objective about like, you should face fear. Like that's positive, right? You know, in your wheelhouse, you probably want your people listening to something like that. So it's a way that I get to at least connect with people, which is why I'm excited about what I'm doing and things like that. But I know this was supposed to be a part of it, of like why I left, right? Should we just do that? Because I have to leave in 11 minutes or my wife is going to go and be angry. She made really good food though. So it's like not even her being angry makes there's Masaman Thai curry that my wife made that is amazing, sitting in this crock pot out here. And I've been smelling it for an hour.
Let's talk about let's talk about why you left, and then give me like one quick funny story or something. So you got 11 minutes to do that. Is that enough?
Yeah. Yes, 11 minutes we can do it. So, okay, so the reason I left is not because I did poorly. It's not because I didn't recruit well. It's not because of any of those reasons. It's not because I hated my boss. It's not because someone was a dick to me. It's not because of anything at all other than the simple fact of that my wife and I wanted to travel less, and it was impossible to do at this job. That's pretty much it. I'd say the only other portion was that I wanted to make some products, and if I made the product with Southwestern stuff, it would be owned by the company. I didn't know what I wanted to make. I wasn't ready to make products that I didn't know how it worked for that. So, you know, I'm going through those talks with Henry Bedford now with our fitness company and chatting about different things. So, you know, if that had been maybe a little bit clearer about how maybe some royalties work or things like that, that might have helped. But at the end of the day, we just didn't want to travel. We wanted to be more locally involved in our church. We wanted to, I get to volunteer on the worship team and sing and play guitar at different times at church. We get to, you know, really plug in with our community. Like we just wanted that, you know, we didn't want to be on a flight all the time and doing things like that. We love the people, like the people we worked with, you know, but there are just some things where it's like, you know what, like, if I look at my goals, you know, I've gotten a lot from this. I've gotten amazing skills that are set me up for the rest of my life. I've got this network that's set me up for the rest of my life. I mean, astounding, amazing. Everyone should go do this, you know, I think for several summers, at least 3 or 4 while you're in school, no matter what. And I'm a big recommender of doing full-time recruiting because of what you learn about yourself. Financially, it may or may not be you know, you probably won't make a ton of money from recruiting your first time, you know, and maybe even your second time. I remember my worst year of recruiting was my first time full-timing. I had a 9-person in-school team and a 5-person in-school team before that did like 5,000 units or 45 and then like 7,000 in school. And I sold 2 and then 6,000 units, you know, my first and second summer. And I was coming off a second summer of winning Student Excellence Award and all of this different stuff and killer #1 B contract or whatever. And my whole team quit the first time full-timing because what I learned about myself is I'm sort of a selfish, obsessive person at that time, you know, and it was all about me and numbers. And I was trying to recruit people for that, do this job. And I wasn't thinking about why I cared about them as human beings, you know, which is exactly what you're saying with selling people on selling. I did that same thing, unfortunately. And I think a lot of people just go through that, you know, as a leader, because it's just part of the thing. It's just collateral. It's collateral damage of personal growth.
Yeah.
You know, it's just,
though.
When you are 18 to 22, 18 to 23, you know, you are going to mess things up so royally that you're going to screw some relationships up that you're never going to get back. And that's just part of it. Honestly, if you want to be in leadership, like it's lonely at the top. It's lonely sometimes. You're going to make these mistakes that you will never repeat. You know, God forbid that you do the same over and over, but which I've seen people do. So please don't do that. But this idea of like, you've kind of got to like mess up a lot and go through like some of the worst pain in order to get to the level that you probably want to be at, where you're kind of firing all on cylinders, because it's got to hurt. Like you don't change when it's easy. When things come naturally. You're not changing. You're coasting, right? The only time you change is when you want it bad enough, you know, because you don't want the opposite, or because it hurts so badly that you cannot bear the pain anymore and you have to change, you know, and that's just part of it. That's the only way you grow. You know, but that's why I left. So, and also I just, some of the scalability type stuff, you know, if you are thinking about owning a business or, you know, a podcast or like YouTube channels, I mean, those are just more scalable things. They are at some point will exponentially grow if you don't quit. The average podcaster quits before 7 episodes, you know, so that's like a stat. The average YouTuber quits way before 1,000 subscribers, but obviously if you're in the millions or hundreds of thousands on either of those platforms, you're making, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year from sponsorships and advertisements. So it's like, and that's a more creative way to do it, which for me, the creativity piece was always what I loved about working at Southwestern is I kind of do it my way, 9 times out of 10, create the thing that I wanted to do, so I'm really drawn by the creativity and I'm really drawn by the inspiration, and there's more ways to do it. And I also just, you get to a point where I felt limited. I felt like I had to really reserve trying to help people to 35, rookies and managers versus trying to help millions of people. So I felt like there was a little bit of a cap of outreach there. And then I got to the point where I was really wanting to be taught marketing. I really wanted to be taught personal branding. And that just wasn't the next step of the path, so for the skills that I wanted, it just wasn't there for that specific position, in that spot. So, wanting to go off on and do that. So those are basic things. So, but I still talk to everybody.
Brilliant.
So
brilliant, sir. Also, especially if you want to have kids anytime soon, I don't know how my brother and his wife do it, but at some point it's like, unless you homeschool and you're just all day, like it's not a lot of DSLs have kids and stay.
It's tough. It's tough. The kids, man. It's a lot of people, I think they're Southwestern people turn into their kids and the job becomes sort of like they blend everything together, my wife and I went the blended route for a few years and I just felt like I was neglecting family, other friends, I don't talk to really anyone from college that wasn't selling books in a lot of ways, there weren't that many people, just because I was so dialed in on that. And I'm not going to say I regret that because to be honest, I just think the average college kid is like, I don't know, like they weren't, but I care. Yes. I care deeply about people, but like for like the people I enjoyed spending time with, it just wasn't like, they were out like drinking, 4 nights a week. And I was like up working, all the time. Right. So it's just like, obviously that person's not going to be attracted to me. Like, dude, what are you doing? Like, we're like going to go party. And I'm like, oh dude, like I'm like studying for my nearly 4.0 GPA right now. I'm kind of a nerd, there's just different trajectories. Everybody wanted to go the 9-to-5 route. Like 99% of people do. The only 1% of people that I had been in contact with were Southwestern book people, that wanted to be in the 1% of people who don't do 9-to-5 jobs, like that. We literally found a Monopoly online for my group. We would play Monopoly sometimes, like after like a team meeting or whatever, we'd sit there and play. It was like a free Monopoly online, and the jail was 9-to-5 job. Like that was the culture. That was the jail. You're in jail as your 9-to-5 job is jail. Go to your 9-to-5 job. You're in jail.
That's a real ball and chain, baby.
Absolutely right. So, so those are the only people that seem to see that sort of vision or get excited about those things. But now, I mean, all I do is talk to college kids, like, maximize their experience, because I think that a lot of my friends who did that kind of stuff, it's just like, I think they're fine, but I just find a lot of people seem to be complaining about what they're doing. They don't like it and they're upset. And I feel like a lot of people get to this point where they feel trapped. In my book, here's a promo for my book one day. I do a little chapter on, why do people end up in places they don't want to end up? And I like to use the alcoholism example, as sort of this thought experiment. Like think it through for a second. Does anyone, when they're 5 years old, grow up and they're like, Daddy, I want to be an alcoholic?
Right.
Okay. So no one wants that to happen. So this must mean that everyone has a dream. They have an ideal scenario for their life, right?
Yeah. Or at the very least, it's not that.
At the very least, they don't want to completely fail, fall on their face, and be an addict where they forget about everything except for a substance, right? No one wants to get to that point, right? Well, why does it happen? Why does it happen? I mean, sometimes, to be honest, when you're a child, if you're in that foster care crap, you kind of don't have a choice. You're kind of just like, your cards you've been dealt really effing sucks. Yeah. Like that's, if you don't end up on that, you're great. But for most people, right, because that's a smaller percentage of the population, for most people become alcoholics because of lack of intentionality. They get to this point where this feels good. I do this. I'm floating around. Well, I'm going to just keep doing the things that feel good. Most people are actually hedonists. I don't know if you know what hedonism is, but hedonism is this philosophical idea that you do whatever feels best all the time. And that's how you make your decisions. I just do what feels good. And if you're in the book field mentality, it's like that's like never the right decision almost. There's a middle ground where you do think, there's parts of life where you do things that feel great. There's a good balance, right? But you get stuck into this mindset of I do everything that feels good. If it feels good, I do it. If it feels good, I do it. And it goes down this real deep, dark path where you end up becoming an alcoholic because you never sat down and thought about what you wanted in life and decided what your values were, right? So you have zero values. I just do what feels good. And like, there's so many college students who talk about it like that. I just do what feels good. I don't know. I'm good at it. It feels good. That's not it. That's not a reason to do something. Right. So and so you end up going along this route for years and years and years. Right. And you start getting addicted to this thing, whether it's smoking and addictions can go in a lot of different things. I think you can be addicted to your work. I've been addicted to work. You can be addicted to porn. You can be, there's a million things that you can be addicted to. And I honestly think culturally, people try to demonize one over the other. They're all the same in a lot of ways. I mean, if you're addicted to like killing people, that's worse, right? There are definitely things that are worse, right? Yeah. But most things in life, whether it's your job, and I just did a podcast on this with a video from Simon Sinek because I love that guy. But he's just talking about the dopamine release that you'll get whenever you get a promotion, get a bonus, make a sale, right? And whether you're an alcoholic, you're addicted to smoking, you're addicted to crack, you're addicted to your job, you're addicted to porn, what always suffers is that you will start throwing out really important things in your life for that thing, right? If you're addicted to porn, which I think is one that's not talked about, but that's like screws up your brain. Yeah. I have been addicted before till I was 19. I bet you almost every male has been at some point in their life, and I don't think you know it. You don't even know it, right? And you think it's cool. Yeah. Like, it's not cool. It's not cool. I'll tell you, like, being a married man, it is not cool. And that was like, stuff that just messes up your relationships. You don't want that in your life, right? But it feels good, right? And you get stuck doing all that kind of stuff. And it's like, you gotta drop it. You gotta let it go. You've got to figure out these values, because otherwise it will consume you, right? You will, every alcoholic, every addict forgets their family. They throw them out. They lose their connections. And then you get deeper and deeper. It's like, that's why it happens, right? So where does it start? It starts by innocence, lack of intentionality, lack of thinking about the big questions, wanting an escape, and then making all those millions of small decisions to where you feel like, I tried quit smoking 30 years ago, but didn't work out.
Oof, bro. We didn't even get a ponytail in there. You got to come back. I have more stuff to discuss about this with you, because
we could talk for a while.
I agree a lot. I also have another perspective I recently learned about. I'll just drop this here for the audience. And
what's the perspective?
Chew on this. I'm still chewing on this. So I'm on your, I'm exactly agree. I'm agreeing with you. And then I heard about this and I was like, oh, that's an interesting thought, is that addiction is just a symptom of a different thing, of something else. So like when someone's addicted to whatever any of the things that you mentioned, it's not, some of it is like what you mentioned. It just started that way and it just kind of just evolved into something terrible. But then there's also a part that it's a symptom of a bigger issue. Right. So something people would be like, well, you have liver disease, or like with anything else, you have a problem. If the problem was like, if cancer, or I can't even explain this to you, but the point is, it's more like having an addiction is a symptom.
Right. It is totally a symptom.
A bigger issue.
It's a symptom of,
yeah. And it's like, and if you look, when you look at it that way, it's a lot easier to get out of it, because then because you can then just target the actual disease and not the actual, not the
right, not the symptom. Exactly. Right. It's the whole point.
And then it overcorrects. Yeah. So it's a different way of saying what you're saying, but it was a much more like, almost like a controllable way of looking at it. And I was like, ooh, I kind of like where that's going. I still got to explore it more because I'm still learning about it. But I was like, wow, I read about this maybe 3 weeks ago on an article, and I was like, oh, that's super interesting. More on that later. But anyway, okay,
absolutely.
Go get your Thai food. Go get your Thai food.
Many theories on that. Absolutely, we could talk. That would be literally another hour and a half podcast, probably on that one topic.
Yeah, we could.
Because man's like, oh man, let's talk about Jesus on that. Let's talk about that heart, man. Let's talk about like what we were all yearning for. You know what I'm saying? Ooh, that'd be good stuff. And we could talk about it forever. So, okay, what's the ponytail? What's an actual ponytail, real quick? So I can remember.
Any story that you were like, if I was like, here's an open mic, it could be a funny one, it could be like something dark, or maybe you're in front of a group of college kids and you want to give this story to empower them.
I'm gonna give this one. It's gonna be like a minute and a half. Okay, and we can go into more details at one point. Out in the middle of nowhere, dead end road. Imagine it, dead end road. big freaking
Texas?
house, winery to the left. No, I'm in Oklahoma, I think. No, Virginia. Yeah, Oklahoma. Virginia. And there's a winery to the left that I went and knocked on, and they were like, we're a winery. We don't have kids. Across the road, though, they have kids. I know the guy's name. I got a referral to him. I'm going down, not home. Come back that evening, not home. Come back on Saturday, not home. Come back on like the 4th of July. Pulling up, and the mom's home with the teenage daughters. And this guy owns a big, huge company that's like, construction. And literally down from his house, he has this massive yellow, construction vehicle, right? And they're like, well, he's the decision maker. Yeah, I'm like, okay, well, like, do you want to go to college or whatever? I'm like, sort of like door introing to like get these people interested, because that's what I would do to sort of see if it made sense to run down there and talk to them. And they're like, oh yeah, like this would be great. We're going to go to college. Like we actually want to go to this school, and I'd love to look at it. I was like, okay, cool. Well, let me go run down and talk to him real quick, and then maybe we'll see if we can get him up here. And this is the most badass sales story. And this right here, this sales story will, like, if you do this and you get in the habit of doing stuff like this, Mark Cuban talks about stuff like this, and like all these really, really successful, people, at least on the monetary side and stuff like that. I run down into my car. I drive down this gravel dirt road, and he's got this big like monster truck, like dump truck, like that you played with his kids, right? Or like whatever. It's got the pit, whatever it's called. And I get out, and he's like crushing rocks. He's crushing rocks. It's my 5th summer. It's my best summer. He's crushing rocks. He's doing stuff. It's like so loud. And it's literally like, I'm like acting like he's a farmer on a tractor, like running around, like waving at him, and he sees me, he stops what he's doing. Okay. He's hard at work here, sweaty, cool guy. He stops, he gets out. He's like, what are you doing? He didn't turn it off. He does not turn off the vehicle, which basically means if you ever sell books, they are not interested. If they don't turn it off,
to hear what you have to say.
They don't care what you're saying. Right. And then I basically give like a 1 or 2 liners, like, hey, I talked to your wife, said to come down here. You're Bob, right? I know your neighbors. These are people who bought from you. Your daughter wants to look at this. Because I talked to her and I got that okayed, right? And he's like, okay. He's like, what this? I know you're busy, but what if I go talk to him? You meet me up there in 10 minutes. And if she wants it, great, you guys can get it. And if she doesn't, you just tell me no and I'll be gone. And he's like, all right, or whatever. And basically I did that, went and sold the daughter, went and sold the mom. He walks in and he's just basically he's like, you're going to use it. You're going to use it. You're going to use it. She says, yes. And then she's like, no. And he's like, well, I'm getting it because you need it. And then he gave me $500 for a CA. And I basically sold him on coming up there regardless because his daughter wanted to see it. So, you got all the little lingles on there. So that was probably my most badass sale. Wasn't the biggest sale I've ever made at all. I've had many bigger ones than that. But it was just like the most bold, audacious. I just left there feeling like, yeah, man, I got it. Like, this is it right here. This is awesome. So
this is the flow.
All right. There we go. We can end it and come back though, for sure.
All right, guys, we're going to call this one an episode, but thanks so much, Joe, for being on here. Again, if you guys want more information, check the links out below. You can go find him, get a hold of. If you, for some reason, can't find any links or something like they're not working, just message us on the show on Instagram, and we'll get you connected to Joe one way or the other. On that note, guys, my name is Andres Gamboa. This is episode 176 of the Ponytails podcast. Joe Ignace is with us. See you guys in the next one.